Well, today I'm going to look at one of my cars. Got a call from my wife. Said battery light came on. Started freaking out. Windshield wipers, lights on the dash. Wasn't running real well. I'm guessing, and I am guessing at this point because I haven't looked at anything yet, it's an alternator problem. It's not charging the battery, but we're going to take a look and see if we can figure out what's going on. This is kind of an on-site diagnosis, as I didn't want her to try to drive it home from where she was because I didn't think she would make it there. So let's see if we can figure out what's going wrong. So this is what tends to happen when you're in a hurry. My multimeter, threw it in my tool bag. Didn't think about it. No battery. I stole the battery out of it for another piece of equipment. Forgot, just had to go out and get a battery. So now I got a brand new battery. So maybe now it'll work. Alright, I'm going to start this up. Test across the battery here. Should get around 14.5 volts, something in that range, if the alternator's charging the battery correctly. If it's not, we'll get a lower reading, or a real high reading. I don't think it's real high though. So we'll put it on 20, volt range 20. Hopefully this will start, because I don't know how much charge it's got left. 11.8, it might be a surface charge. We'll see in a second if this is going to actually start up. Well, obviously it started, so let's see what we got going on here. 10.58. Let me show you that. Now, am I guaranteeing that's the alternator? No, not at this point. But, let's see right there. 10.58, 10.47. That is not good. And that's kind of what I thought. I'm guessing that the alternator's not charging, and that's why the battery's low. But we're going to take this battery out, just check it, put it on a charger for a little bit. My charger I have is a smart charger. It'll tell me whether or not it's got a bad cell or anything like that, but to me, it looks like it's got a bad alternator. That pretty much sums it up. I'm just going to disconnect this battery, pull it out, put it on a charger for a little bit, see if it's got a bad cell. If it charges okay, then we got a bad alternator, which is what I'm guessing we have. Pretty cruddy. So one thing to notice here, this battery has a tendency to get corroded. This is the negative side. On the positive side, usually that comes from a little bit of overcharging or gases coming out of the actual battery. This is not a maintenance free and actually corroding this. You see this on the negative side. A lot of times that's from undercharging. I'm guessing alternator's been undercharging this for a little bit, and that's why we're seeing a good amount of corrosion, because I usually don't see that on the negative side. I'm just going to hook this back up after cleaning it and try it, start it up one more time, just to see if it makes a difference in the reading. I don't think it will. I'm going to try just to be sure. almost didn't want to start on that one. We're slow cranking. Let me check this voltage one more time just to be sure. Well, it's even worse. 9.9. So it's definitely not charging the battery. Got a hold down bolt bottom of the battery here to take off 13 millimeter. Just gonna pry the caps. This is, like I said, this is not a maintenance free. Just gonna pry the caps up on this and take a look down in there. Just make sure it's got fluid. Oh man. Wow. I'm curious to see if this is gonna test that okay. One of those cells looks pretty bad in there. Doesn't look real good. So, could have multiple things. This side looks good, so we'll put it on a charger. The charger will tell me if I have a bad cell. Smart charger. Okay, well, I'll take that battery over, put it on the charger there for a little bit. See if it charges out okay, tests out okay. If not, replace that as well. And there is the alternator right there, which I believe is not working at all. I'll pull that off. I'll show you how to do that. There, put this battery on the charger. So I wanted to show you a couple additional tests. This is after I put the alternator back in. And I could have run these tests initially, but I was pretty confident that the problem that I had was the alternator. But there are a couple of tests you can run to check it even further. So I'm going to show you the two additional tests you can do in addition to just taking the voltage across the battery to see if the alternator is charging. There's a couple other things involved. One is a fusible link, positive side of the battery. That cable will run to the starter solenoid, and then from the starter solenoid it'll run to the alternator. And on that cable, running between the alternator and the solenoid is a fusible link. That link can get burned out, and that would keep the alternator from charging the battery. The other is there is control of the alternator and the voltage through the computer. There's an electronic voltage regulator, and I'm going to show you how to test for both of those things. And if you want to be 100% sure that it's your alternator and not one of those other two issues, then you should run these two additional tests as well. Okay, so the first test I'm going to do is I'm going to check continuity between this terminal, the positive side of the battery, and this terminal on the side of the alternator. This cable that runs from that battery to the starter through the solenoid and to here has a fusible link in it between the alternator and the starter solenoid. That fusible link could go bad, and that means that alternator would not be able to charge the battery, so I'm going to show you how to check that. First thing I'm going to do is just remove the negative side. Just doing an ohm test on this, so I don't need voltage and I don't want it. So this test will tell me whether or not that fuse is bad, that fusible link. It will not tell me that the cable is necessarily good. I could still get continuity, but until you put a load across it, you won't know whether or not that cable is really good. I'm just going to disconnect the negative side here. Take the negative side off. We're going to plug our multimeter in and set it. I want to do ohms, so I just want to do 200. That's plenty. Should get very few, so you can see it's open right now. And there's continuity, basically. No resistance, very little resistance. So I'm going to put one end of this on the positive side of the battery, and I'm going to put the other end on the side terminal on the alternator that I showed a minute ago. And we're going to see what we get for a reading, if we get a reading, which we should. So you can see Get a good connection here. 0.3. So that's basically what I want to say. Let's bring you in and show you a close-up of that. So you can see it's open. I'm just going to touch them together right here. Continuity. I can put one end on the side terminal of the alternator, one end on the positive side of the battery. You see I have very little resistance, 0.3, which means that fusible link is good. That's what we wanted to check. So the other test that I wanted to run, I'm going to connect between the positive side of the battery and I'm going to connect to the generator field terminal, which is this back terminal on the alternator right here. In this case, it's the brown gray wire, and I back probed this with a T-post, and I'm going to hook my meter to that. I'm going to start the car. I'm going to reattach the battery on the negative side, start the car, and we should get a voltage. So I'm going to set my meter in this case. Back up here a little bit so you can see this. So I'm going to change this to a 20-volt scale. So I'm on a 20-volt scale, and that's what I want to leave that one. That's what I'm going to test. I'm just going to use a couple of alligator clips to make this easier. You can see, connecting one to the T-post that I back probed onto the generator field terminal, the back of the alternator. Make sure I have a good connection there. I want to check that connection. Make sure that it's not anywhere where it can get wrapped up in a fan or belt or anything like that. I'm going to put my other end to the positive side of the battery. Get it on there. Connection there. Connect these to my leads. Okay. Now, I'm going to hook the negative side of the battery back up. As you can see, I've got voltage. I've got battery voltage. Now I don't, because I just dropped it. I've got battery voltage right now between that terminal on the generator field terminal on the alternator and the battery. Put this back up. Okay, so remember I'm measuring between that positive side of the battery, the voltage, and the generator field terminal on the back of the alternator. Start the car up now. So you can see the voltage reading I'm getting here, and I have nothing turned on in the car right now. I have the air conditioner's not on, the radio's not on. I have just a straight basic reading of the voltage that I'm getting between the positive and the generator terminal. So you can see, I'll bring you over and look at it here as I zoom you in here. So there you go. So that's what we're seeing. Just slightly changing there. That's the computer actually running a duty cycle, turning it on and off, basically, depending on the load that it's seeing. So I'm going to go in the car and turn the air conditioner on, turn the radio on, and turn the fan on full blast, and we should see a difference in what happens there. Okay, so you can see I turned the headlights on, I turned the air conditioner on, the radio on, and you can see what happened to the voltage that I'm reading across that, between that terminal and the positive side of the battery. And what's doing that is the computer is sensing a load on the electrical system and a load on the engine, and it's actually changing the duty cycle and allowing the alternator to push more voltage back to the battery, because the car is requiring more voltage with more things turned on inside. So that's what you want to see. If that was not doing that, if it was, the value didn't change, it didn't go up like you see it went from about 1.9 or 2 to now it's like 5.5 in that area, that means your computer is not controlling the alternator and the output of the voltage back to the battery, and there's a problem with the electronic voltage regulator in the PCM. But that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see when more things are turned on, the computer senses it and allows more voltage and current to flow through back to the battery. So I'm going to go in and turn those things off now. So you can see it's come back down. There's less load on the engine, load on the car right now, less demand. So the computer has then changed the duty cycle to keep the voltage going to the battery, or the current that's flowing back to the battery, to charge it where it needs to be, so it won't overcharge it, it won't damage the battery. Okay, so battery's on charger. It's pretty dead, but it is charging. Didn't seem to have a bad cell in it. So we're going to take this alternator off, but of course, before we do that, we've got to get in here, get to this belt, and get to the tensioner, and undo that serpentine belt. So I'm going to take that off, that serpentine belt. I'm going to bolt there. There's a bolt in the back right there. It has to come off, and I believe there's another one down the bottom, which I can't see right now. Okay, so you can see I pulled this airbox inlet and get it out of the way, and the only reason I did that is because way down in there, you can barely see it in there, way down in there is the idler pulley for the serpentine belt, and I have a tool to get at that just to release the tension in the belt. So I'm going to attempt to do that next. It's not a lot of room, not the easiest thing to get to. So here's the tool. This long handle has an extension that goes with it as well. I shouldn't need it for this one. This one has a square hole in it, 3/8 I believe. I'm going to slide that down in there and try to release the tension on this belt so I can get it off the pulleys. Okay, I lied a little bit before. Thought it was 3/8, but it's actually 1/2 inch, so I do need the extension on this. Okay, so 10 minutes of struggle. Okay, so 10 minutes of struggle, but as you can see down here, the belt is now undone and off of the pulley. That is not. Okay, up there. So I need to get this bolt in here, the electrical connection. I need to get that undone. It looks like a 13 millimeter. Okay, that electrical connector out of the way. We got that bolt to get right there. And I'm guessing I have one more that I don't see yet. Gotta take a look. Right there. Right down there at the bottom. If I can get it to show you. Whoa, 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 what's going on? No problem there with the camera. Little operator error there. Right down there at the bottom. Right there is a bolt. Right over. Man, it's hard to show it to you. It's right there though. I'll do that one. Okay, so I've got both the front bolts off of it. Got that one remaining bolt, which is right there. And I took that second electrical connector. I'm going to show you this electrical connector. This might help somebody. Maybe if you ever have to do these Chysler and other cars. And these Chysler's famous for these things. A little push-in red tab there. You have to push it in, it locks it in place. But of course, this connector goes like this, so it's facing the bottom. So somebody who doesn't know that will try to get this off of here, won't see that, and probably end up breaking the connector if they're not careful. It'd be nice if they put it on top on this connector. It'd be a little easier to see, but you gotta slide that connector out, pull it out, it releases it, and then you can pull the connector off. So I disconnected that as well. So the only thing I have left to do, get that out of the way, is right there. That bolt right there. So I'm going to pull that off, hopefully without too much problem. Okay, those three bolts out. Showed you before. Two here in the front. One on the, well, there's actually, in relation to the car, it sits this way. That's the side of the car. That's the front. So this bolt, two on the tube up near the belt. So first thing I want to do, always when you get a new part, is kind of set them side by side. Check them, make sure there's no mistakes, make sure it's the right one. This looks the same, mounting's the same. Electrical connector, I left that on there, but the electrical connector's the same. So we should be good to go. We're going to put that one back in, bolt it up, and hook it back up. Okay, it's back in. Three bolts bolted up. I haven't put the electrical connectors on there, but I will. And we'll hook that belt up and pretty much done. One thing to note, there's three bolts. Start all three. Don't put one in and tighten it up and try to do the other two. Make sure you get all three started and in pretty well before you start tightening them up. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it could be a little bit off and you won't be able to get one of the remaining bolts in. So make sure you do that. Start all three before you start tightening them up. Okay, so everything's back together. New alternator's in. Everything's hooked back up. Just put the battery. The battery was still pulling 10 amps. It's been on the charger for about an hour, hour and a half, but it was pretty dead. So I'm going to start this up. We're going to see. Hopefully it will start. And then we're going to see what kind of charge we're getting through there. And hopefully we'll be getting a 14.5 or something around that voltage reading from this alternator. See how we do. Otherwise we get other problems. Got started. Okay, so if you bring that camera right over here, I'll show that. Can you see that? Let me see if I can stand it up for it, make it a little easier. So, We're getting about 10.5 volts last time, which was the battery voltage. No charge to the alternator. 13.5. So this alternator is charging this battery now, which it should be. I had to look at the specs for this car, but that's probably about right where it should be. They vary based on the car, but it's much better. It's actually charging the battery, so we'll let it run for a little bit, let it charge the battery up, and we should be good to go.